p.m., friends. Thanks for joining DeFi-Logic Symposium Sunday, every Sunday at 7 p.m. Mountain Time. As a member of the DeFi-Logic server, you can join our call every week and discuss in real time. Link is in the description below. DeFi-Logic is the crypto think tank for better decisions. In today's community call, we'll review daily reports covering triggers of a supercycle and implications for investors for FA Friday, the XRP revolution and the ripple effect for weekly dose theme, weekly market callbacks with Eddie, and a discussion from GeForce about what we are all experiencing in almost every aspect of life, inflation. And let's get started. Over to you, Pepe.
All right, so if you were paying attention on crypto Twitter this week, there was a lot of retardation in the space, as there usually is whenever it comes to legal shit. This guy was one of the first guys that I saw putting out the information. I saw this tweet after I was speculating out of the house, so I couldn't go through the document that was in question. But you can see here that the first time I saw it was Watcher Guru, and then I saw that Unusual Whales, which I'll have to dig up that tweet and see if I can find it if they didn't delete it. But Unusual Whales was community noted for false information, misinformation, whatever you want to call it nowadays. But yeah, so you can see the tweet here, and then the link to this post is deleted, right? So what's going on here, right? So he breaks it down in a thread. He says that he first saw it in Finbold, which is here. So from Finbold, but I saw it here on Cointelegraph, and basically where this all started, he's correct. I mean, in crypto, the news is basically all the same shit on all the platforms, right? So anything that's halfway reputable, all the same news outlets are saying the same thing with different writers, and sometimes even the same writers. So you can see here that he's talking about this tweet from Patrick Bray, right? And that's exactly who is quoted in the Cointelegraph article on this document. And so it's basically a bunch of nothing, people panicking. This happened in the Discord server at DeFi-Logic a while ago, and I was arguing with people about how pump the brakes and let's see what happens, because people were like, they're going to ban crypto in the UK and in Europe and blah, 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 and this, that, and the other, and none of it's true. It's basically never true. It's like the same news cycle with China bans crypto, unbans crypto, bans crypto, unbans crypto. Dude, just be highly skeptical when you see stuff like this that is like the end of crypto, right? Because in a more fundamental sense, we can use our brains, click those on every once in a while, our critical thinking skills, and be like, we have some of the biggest asset managers in the world with ETFs approved for Bitcoin in the United States. They're waiting on approval in the United States for an Ethereum ETF. You really think that EU is just going to shut it all down? No. Okay. And so a lot of this has to do with, so you can see here, they're all putting this out. They're talking about caps on 3,000 euros and 10,000 euros. Okay. It has to do with money laundering, and it is not specifically targeted to crypto. It is all financial services in the EU have to comply with this, including transactions for crypto. I'll have the write-up in the server if you want to read it later on today or tomorrow. It breaks it down even more clearly, but essentially what's going on here, and I'll bring the preliminary write-up that I have, but basically there's a $3,000 threshold for customer due diligence on cash transactions, and there's a 10,000 euro cap on large cash transactions to disrupt the flow of illicit funds, illicit being money laundering, terrorist financing, stuff like that. Again, said it already, but just put your thinking caps on, everybody. Don't panic. I've been in crypto for so long now, but it still keeps happening. I don't understand how this keeps happening. I really don't get it. You know what I mean? Especially by people that have been in the space for a while. We should be skeptical at this point whenever you see some crazy stuff come out in the news, and just go look at yourself. Go find the information. This is something that came out, by the way, in 2023 in the European Union. And it doesn't go into effect, as far as I'm tracking, until 2027. We got 3 years, and I'm sure they'll have, because you know how laws go, they're going to have changes, amendments, all that good stuff. Once they can figure it out and how it's going to be implemented, this is really just a foundation for the law that's going to be in effect in 3 years, guys. That was put in motion like a year ago. So over a 4-year period, bureaucracy is slow. You're going to have smart people like Coinbase. They have a legal fund. They go and they talk to people in the United States. I'm sure they do the same thing in Europe. There's other agencies or foundations that he's talking about in this thread that they're working with people in Europe and toned it down for crypto. Those same people are going to talk to lawmakers and make it realistic. So this whole thing was just, again, blown out of proportion. Anytime crypto people see something that has to do with the law, it's like the most, it might be the most retarded people or like group of people just respond emotionally immediately to everything that has to do with legal stuff. It's like, just go read the document. There's a press release. Everything's online now, whether it's the United States, Europe, Asian countries, even small Asian countries, they have their laws online, so you can go read it, use Google Translate, all that kind of stuff. So that's what I have to say about that. Again, I'll have the write up in the server, so if you want to have a deep dive, or you just want to read this guy's thread, he does a pretty good breakdown of it. It's very basic because it's a thread, you know what I mean? But if you want something more in depth, it'll be in the server.
Perfect. Thank you, Pepe, and hopefully helping the small panic that ripples through crypto. And speaking of Ripple, what's up next is XRP. I'll bring up Sloth, and Sloth is going to cover the XRP revolution. As we know, XRP has in themselves that tends to be all over Twitter quite often. So I'll leave it to Sloth to cover XRP, and there you go.
Okay, just going to go over some of the data analytics. I'll start here with so XRP's been around for a good while. It was originally founded back in 2011. It was actually known by another name, but we'll talk about that in the next write-up. But it's currently sitting at number 6 highest crypto market cap. So total supply is just shy of 100 billion. Circulating supply is a little more than half at 54. If we look at the XRP scan, we can see, so there's currently 638 nodes, which are running version of Ripple, which is the software that runs the Ripple nodes. And then there's 126 validators currently online. And then we can see some more info here, like the base fee, which is 0.00001, so fees are pretty much non-existent. And so for the validators, since it's not exactly a proof of stake blockchain, there's no really limit to amount of XRP that you need to run a validator. It's more about the hardware, since it's a little more resource intensive. I had the actual stats here. Let me find them. So if you actually wanted to become a Ripple validator, so you would just need basically a server dedicated specifically to hosting that node, running like an instance of Ubuntu or Red Hat Enterprise Linux, and you need a minimum of it's an Intel Xeon 3 plus gigahertz processor, 8 plus cores, minimum of 64 gigabytes of RAM, SSD or NVMe with minimum of 50 gigabytes bit network interface. So it's pretty resource intensive if you were wanting to run a validator. And here we can see the validator registry. This just shows a list of the validators and when they're last seen online, the version of Ripple they're running, boring stuff if you're really into that. And then this just shows us more real-time transaction data. So this just shows like the total amount of transactions on the ledger, which is over 86 million successful payments. This is just within the last 24 hours, 48,000 transactions, 80 new accounts created, and the current TPS, which isn't really that impressive with a little over 16 transactions per second. Better than Ethereum, obviously, but a little less impressive than blockchains such as Solana, which were pushing to over 3,000 TPS recently. And then if we look here, this is the XRP ledger, so we can actually see all the ledger transactions in real time, which is neat to look at. And then if we look here, this just goes over kind of the top 100 holders. So obviously a lot of them are going to be Ripple itself, right? So the top 2, and then a lot of the other ones are just like the bigger exchanges. We can see Binance, Uphold, Upbit, Kraken. Yeah, a lot of these are just bigger holders, either the Ripple Foundation or exchanges themselves. And we can see here too the actual makeup distribution. Upbit actually has a higher percentage as far as the exchange holdings, with almost 4.5% of the total supply, and then Binance is actually almost half of that with 2.5%. But majority of it is either held by Ripple Labs or just by XRP holders. And then it just shows the recent stats. So we see XRP's at 63 cents, market cap fully diluted 34 billion. The all-time high price was 328 back in January 2018, which was the top of that cycle. cycle lows at 12 cents back in 2020. So, and this is cool here, this little graph that shows the ROI versus other assets. We can see, obviously, versus the USD, it's outperformed, but the same can be said for pretty much almost any crypto. But what's interesting is if we look at the other ones, like the price versus BTC or ETH, it's actually pretty much underperforming against everything, and even versus just DeFi in general. So as far as an actual sound investment, I guess it's better than holding USD, but there's definitely better cryptos to hold to get better returns. And then as far as the staking goes, so like I said, since it's not a proof of stake, there's not really a way to stake it, but there are other platforms where you can stake it. There's like Nexo, which unfortunately is closed off to US customers. They offer about 8% return right now, but there's some other ones. Like we got Binance, which is only at 1.6. But then there's other ones here too. But yeah, the majority of them don't really offer great returns for the staking. And yeah, that's pretty much it for that. The only other thing is the XRP, the holder distribution. So you can see here, so that there's 4.8 million holders. You got the top 10 holders hold 11% of the total supply. Top 20 is at 16, top 50, 26, and the top 100 hold 33%. So just the top 100 holders are holding a third of the supply that's 100 out of 4.8 million total. So I'll give it over to Trill, and he'll go ahead and talk about his part.
Yeah, as far as the technical side of XRP, or originally known as OpenCoin and then Ripple, and formerly referred to as XRP, in the beginning they were just a payment company focusing on challenge. Actually, they were a payment company that were around before the time of Bitcoin. So, but when Bitcoin had came around, their goal was to improve on the distributed payment or blockchain technology of Bitcoin. Paper, it at least shows some of the technical stuff, but like I said, it is a pretty prehistoric chain. So a lot of the problems that it aims to solve have been solved by later chains, or Bitcoin at the same time has been updated and things like that. So the main things to go over as far as the technical side of XRP, at least, is the problems that they seek to address, or what they highlight within the distributed payment system, which is correctiveness, agreement, and utility. And then their components, which is part of the Ripple protocol, the servers, ledgers, and multiple components of the ledgers. We have Open Ledger, which is basically how people submit transactions. The last closed ledger, which is what the Open Ledger will become once those transactions are verified. And then the unique node list, which is what the Open Ledgers use, as the name is, the nodes that the Open Ledgers use to verify the transactions that then become the last closed ledgers. And then we have the proposers, which is technically anything can propose. Server on the Ripple protocol can propose, but only proposal of a unique node list is valid. And in terms of at least security, only a transaction that has approval of 80% of a unique node list is verified, so approved. And then as far as in terms of maintaining speed or maintaining the throughput, because their main goal was to solve the slowness as well as scalability of Bitcoin. So to maintain the throughput of their network, the unique node lists that don't keep up to par with the recommended or their set latency will end up being dropped. So there's that aspect. And I believe Swap touched on the centralization aspect as far as the top 100 holders own a third of the network. I'm not 100% sure as far as the unique node list, but there's definitely centralization in general and over the network, which is just an issue with the protocol in general, as well as the token. 100 billion total supply, 20 billion was allocated to Ripple co-founders, so a Ripple founding team. So that's 1/5 of the total supply. And then 55 billion since then have been locked. It was since 2021 in escrow what's the supply schedule? I believe it's a 55-month supply schedule. And see, as far as their naming Ripple, the name comes from the act, like how the transactions move throughout the nodes. I guess it's, in my opinion, like it was the first of its nature, so it makes sense as far as Ripple. But you can see that in a good amount of other blockchain technology. Another important thing to touch on for their technical aspect is this was an important feature as far as how the nodes are connected in a click-like structure. But as far as that goes, like I said, it's a prehistoric blockchain. They haven't mentioned much updates, but even though it being prehistoric, it's used in real businesses and things like that, but it's just sees a little bit of centralization. But that's as far as I have to say on Ripple from the technical aspect. Have those components, what's used in the real world, real businesses, just as far as from an investment standpoint, you just may want to see, or you may want to proceed with caution, because there isn't much as far as leading technology growth or even much of a return potential with the centralization.
Yeah, and if you wanted to read more in-depth analysis of the tech, specifically the Cobalt, which is the Byzantine fault tolerance governance that they use, there's a paper on that. It's like a 50-page document that goes into depth on that specifically. And then another thing to note too, so one of the co-founders, Jed McCaleb, a lot of people who've been in the space for a long time probably know who he is because he was a kind of earlier pioneer, and he's actually launched 3 different firms since he's been in the space. First one was in 2010, he actually created Mt. Gox, which was the first Bitcoin exchange, which he sold before it got hacked, which was 2012, around that time. And then, so yeah, he co-founded Ripple in 2012, and then he actually left, and then a couple years later, he co-founded Stellar Lumens, which is pretty much a direct competitor. It would do the same thing, and just aim to speed up the cross-border payments. But so yeah, that's a lot of people probably already, at least who've been in the space, already know that. And he's actually sold the last of his coins because he still had a bunch of XRP, and then he sold the last of it back in July 2022. So yeah, he's totally out of the heap now. So yeah, and he's worth about $3 billion. Just a little bit of backstory on one of the co-founders.
And it looks like the Ripple CEO spoke at the Blockworks Digital Asset Summit in London this past week. So I'm curious to see if we see any video clips with any kind of new news coming out from them this week. So we'll have to wait and see if Twitter reveals anything fun from that summit.
There's one other thing too. A couple months back, there was a Chris Larson, one of the other co-founders of Ripple. He actually, one of his supposedly personal XRP accounts, not Ripple's, were hacked for about 213 million XRP, which at the time was a little over $100 million. But they ended up freezing the assets. But yeah, that was all over Twitter a couple months back, end of January.
And the comments are flying in the community on that one. It's great to see. Awesome. Thank you guys for the write-up this week. Everybody can read it in the Discord, so feel free to pop into the Discord. Both Trill and Sloth, great write-up again. And we'll go ahead and move along here, and we'll bring up Eddie for some look at the markets.
All right, we're just going to do a quick look back ONDO, because everyone who bought ONDO is going to be cashing in for condos. But I did drop in the TA charts. It was a pretty easy play. All-time high retest, you just buy that. One of the simplest trades you can take. And I didn't get all the fills I wanted to. It barely tapped it and just started going turbo, which are you like to see and also don't like to see. There's some pretty obvious buying happening too. Somebody wants to fill up some size of this trade, but it's giving some of the easiest price action ever. Like another one here again. I imagine you could just keep doing that playbook over and over again. We'll see if it can go a bit. Then I'd look to bid it. It's already tapped it once, but right now I'm already in position and just looking to add on to it. That'll be it for this time. Yeah, check out the server. Easy place.
Thanks, Eddie. All right, next up is P-Force. He is going to discuss what we all know and love, which is inflation. So looking forward to hearing from him and his viewpoint on current inflation and what it might look like for us in the future.
So my article subject this week, and I called it Inflation Isn't Tamed. And if anybody goes to the grocery store on their own, buys their own gas, I think you guys realize that prices are still high. They might have inched down a little bit, but prices are still going up. So this past week on Wednesday, the Fed paused any interest rate hikes. So they're on pause right now. So everybody on Wall Street, traders are saying, okay, are you going to start cutting rates. So interesting, the day after Wednesday, which is Thursday, Switzerland, the Swiss, cut their interest rates. And then the Bank of England started talking about cutting interest rates later that day. So Fed Chairman Powell was asked, are we going to start getting interest rate cuts in the US? So I'm highlighting here, it says, so naturally when he said the Fed was looking to slow the pace of selling securities fairly soon, a reporter wanted to know what that meant. They're talking about interest rate cuts as well. Is that going to happen this year? And he talked about, yeah, we're thinking about it fairly soon. So I wanted to bring up this quote from this wealth manager, Jeff Hibbler, right here. He talked about the opposite. He said, although core CPI declined slightly in February, the 3-month and 6-month annualized rates accelerated to 4.3 and a 3.9 respectively. Okay, you can look at him and his quote, I dug into it and he's definitely right. So it's actually accelerating. He said it was accelerating, which is the total opposite of what Powell was saying. So if the Fed, are they smart enough to see this? Yeah, they're smart enough to see this, but they don't want to project that to the public. The reason why they don't, because 2024 is an election year and the economy has to be good for this election. They don't want the economy to be a factor in the election. Everybody made that mistake back when George Bush Sr. lost because he didn't know the price of milk, and the price of milk was increasing significantly. So they're not going to make that mistake ever again. The Fed always leans towards the incumbent because the Fed chairman would definitely have his job for the next few years if the incumbent president. So I'm leaving this up to you. The end of the article is talking to you guys. Are you guys seeing this? I see it at the grocery store. I actually do my own shopping, actually buy gas, but have an EV. But still, things are just going up. And I also, at the end of the article, I talked about the number one indicator that I have of a recession coming. Okay, this is a 10-year Treasury note, the yield versus the 3-month Treasury note yield. So, and it's inverted. This is called an inverted yield curve. So you'll look here that on my cursor that I call it on Halloween of October of 2022, where it started to go down. And you can see that this inversion has continued, okay? This indicator, since it started being followed since, I believe it was 1954, but the early 1950s, has been 100% accurate. So it always predicts a recession. So if you look over here, it predicted the pandemic and the 2020 recession. How does it do that? And that's crazy. And that's why I like this indicator, because it even did that. And that's the last prediction. So how this prediction works is, though, even though it predicted it on October 31st of 2022, this indicator, it takes 6 months to 18 months for the recession to start. So you can see that we've been going down here significantly. We've been inverted ever since that point in time, and a significant inversion. So if it predicts it again and it's 100% accurate again, then our recession is going to be a major issue, and it's going to be a significant recession. Okay, I'm done with my write-up and my discussion. Hand it back over to Christine.
Thank you, G-Force. The community's going wild in the chat. Start talking about inflation and everybody goes crazy. Great to see. Thank you so much for that write-up. I'll be definitely checking it out in the summary today. And that's it for this week. As a DeFi-Logic server member, you'll discuss markets daily and 8 coins and trade with other members. Astrobit 2.0 is live, and our ETH and Doge strategies are now in beta testing. Join our server now. Early members get free access for life and future discounts on additional products and services. See you next Sunday at 7 p.m. Mountain Time. GM friends.
Join us next week in Discord for Symposium Sunday at DeFiLogic.com.